I'm going to say the word I a lot in the next 3 weeks. I'm going to say the word we a lot in the next 3 weeks. I'm going to say the word us. And I want you to know, just right up front, very first thing I want to tell you as we sort of go through what I want to show you tonight, that when you hear me say, I think, I believe, we need, those kinds of things, I just want you to hear my heart in that I'm just following orders. I'm just simply trying my very best to be obedient, to do what the Lord has laid on my heart. And that's all I'm doing here tonight and for the next 3 weeks, is just sharing with you what I truly believe, I am convinced of, that the Lord is doing. So I want you to know that. You may be tempted to think, well, is this about the pastor? Is this about what we want or what we think? Absolutely not. All of these things that we're going to be talking about have been brought before the throne. And so we just sort of bow in front of the Lord and do these under His authority. Every church that wants to make a difference must have a common mission, a clear vision, and some core values. These are things, I know we're moving around a little bit tonight. I know our kids are outside, and you feel free to do that. It's very casual. Get up, get some more food, use the restroom if you need to. But I want you to know this is a heartbeat of what we're going to be doing the next few weeks together. Every church that makes a difference. I want you to know I want to belong to a church that makes a difference. And I know a lot of you do as well. I've been with you long enough to know your heart and your gifts and what you've been praying for. Every church that wants to make a difference needs a common mission, a clear vision, and some core values. And I want to tell you, there are some churches that do not want to make a difference. And I'm not interested in those churches. I'm not interested in critiquing churches. I'm not interested in comparing our church to other churches. That's not what this is about. What those churches do under the lordship of Jesus is between them and Jesus. My concern is what we're doing in this place with God's people here at Cedar Creek. It seems to me that there are two categories that every church will either belong to one or the other. And I take this just in the years of ministry, in the research, and in knowing and seeing and just understanding how churches work, that every church across denominations, regardless of what denomination it is, and regardless of where you are in the world, falls into one or two categories. The first is a maintenance church. A church that just simply wants to maintain, wants to keep the status quo. There are many, many churches like this that all they're interested in is to keep the bills paid and keep the programs running, keep everybody happy, keep the doors open, just make sure that everything keeps going the way it's been going for however long it's been going. They just want to make sure that everything stays the way that it's supposed to stay and do what they're supposed to do. And I want to tell you, from my heart, I do not know how to pastor a maintenance church. I don't know how to do it. It's not in my DNA. It's not how I'm wired up. And when I say I don't know how, it doesn't mean I don't have the ability to do it. It just means I don't have the knowledge to do it. I'm ignorant of that. I don't know how to just look at what God is doing and saying, okay, as long as we keep the doors open, the program's running, the bills are paid, and everybody happy, then let's just keep things going the way that they are. And some of you may have this mindset, and it's not a bad mindset. Maybe it's just the way that we've always known this or learned this, or we've grown up with this. But you may hear some of these things over the next 3 weeks, some of these ideas, some of these things that I'm sharing with you, and you may have this thought in your mind, well, look, Andy, listen, we've got a good thing going here at Cedar Creek Baptist Church. Why change it? Why mess with a good thing? Our bills are being paid. Most people are happy. The doors are open. We've got great services. We've got great programs. We've got great ministries. We've got great people. We have great experiences. We do all kinds of fun things together. And so, we've got all of this stuff that is going. And you may think, well, there's nothing wrong with being a maintenance church. I want to tell you something. That might be good for the church, but that is not good for the world. We cannot be a maintenance church. And that brings up the second category. You're either a maintenance church or you're a missional church. And that's how I'm wired up. I'm wired up to belong to a missional church. And a missional church is just a church that knows why they exist. They have a purpose. They have a mission. They get up every morning and they say, I know what God has called me to do. I know where God has called me to do it. I know what my gifts are to accomplish that mission. And so a missional church has a direction. They know what they're doing. They know why they're there. They know why they gather on Sunday morning. They know why they gather on Wednesday night. They know why they do events like Trunk or Treat or Spring at the Creek or all these other things that churches do. So we're either going to be a maintenance church or we're going to be a missional church. And I just want you to know the way I'm wired up, I don't know any other way than to be a missional church. It's to be a church on mission, that we know who we are, we know what God has called us to do, and that we move in that direction. So these next 3 weeks, I'm just going to share with you my heart about the direction I believe that God is calling our church to go in. And when we think about these things, the mission is our purpose, the vision is our process, and the values are our principles. The mission is our purpose. It's why we exist. It's why we're here. It's why people show up on Sunday morning and raise their hands and walk the aisle and say, I want to belong to Cedar Creek Baptist Church. I want to be a part of what God is doing at this church. That's our purpose. And we need to know what our purpose is. And it's not just showing up on Sunday morning and hearing some good preaching and good singing and experiencing good fellowship and enjoying a great meal whenever we do that. That can't be our mission. That's not living on mission. That's just sort of doing those things that make us happy and that we enjoy. So if the mission is our purpose, it's what we do. Our vision is our process. It's our strategy. Once we know what we're called to do, once we know what our purpose is, then we need to know how to do that. How do we accomplish those things that God is bringing before us, that God is calling and asking us to do? And we need a vision to be able to know how to do that. It's great to say this is our purpose, but we need something extra. We need to know how do we do that? What's our strategy in doing that? And that's what our vision is. And then our values are just those things that make us who we are. We have our own little DNA here at Cedar Creek. And I want you to be back Sunday because we're going to start talking about our DNA. We're going to start talking about what makes Cedar Creek unique. I believe this is a unique church. I've been to a lot of churches. I've pastored a lot of different churches in different states. I've been around all kinds of different churches my entire life. And every church is different. They may do a lot of the similar things, but every church has its own DNA. And we have our own DNA. There's something about this place that makes us unique. And those of you who've been here for a long time, you know, maybe it's hard for you to articulate about why it is that this little community, this little place that we live is so special. And it is. And I think that's why a lot of people are moving in here, are trying to move in here. That's why a lot of people are looking at this area up here and maybe they're coming for the beauty. That might be true. Maybe they're escaping something else to get out here. But I believe that God's at work here. And that He's doing something beyond what we can see and understand. So we need to know these three things. We need to know what our purpose is. We need to know what the process is to be able to accomplish that purpose. And then we need to know what makes us unique. What makes Cedar Creek Cedar Creek? What are the things that are important to us? Next week when you come, everybody is going to receive a copy of this. And this is a handout, something that I've been working on literally for a year. And there's a lot of information in this. This is a strategic ministry plan and long-term vision for our church. And you're going to have a copy of it. And we're going to go through it. And you're going to see some things in here. For the last year, I've been watching and praying and listening and praying and observing and praying and more praying and just seeing and seeking the Lord's face about what He wants to do here. I literally started the day you voted me in on that Sunday. I went home and rejoiced. I couldn't believe you called me as your pastor. But that day, I got on my face and started praying about, God, what do you want to do at Cedar Creek? And a lot of you have been praying. In fact, some of you have been praying before I even got here. And you've sensed this as well. We've just came out of 40 days of prayer, seeking the Lord's face, coming before Him, asking Him, and begging Him to show us, Lord, what are you doing? And what do you want to do in our church? And so we're going to go through that. We're going to talk some more about that. I'm going to introduce a little bit of it tonight. Again, I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. But because of all of this praying and all that we have been doing these last several months together, I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to show you some numbers. I'm going to show you some analysis, some projections, and then I'm going to lay out for us to consider a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and a 7-year plan. And these are things that God has just been slowly but surely just putting all of these things together. I'm going to lay that in front of you, and then we'll see what the Lord does. All right? And we'll see what direction that takes us. Again, I'll share a little bit more about that next week. Tonight is really about the first of this. Our mission is our purpose, our vision is our process, and our values are our principles. So I want to just share a little bit about the first one of these, which is our mission. This is the reason that we exist. It's the reason that we work. It's the reason that we give. It's the reason that we lead. It's the reason that we teach. It's the reason that we serve. It's the reason that we show up. It's the reason for why you're sitting in this room tonight. This is our purpose. This is what I believe the Lord wants us to do. Why does Cedar Creek Baptist Church exist? We exist to connect people to Jesus so they can discover life in Him. This is what I want. This is what I believe the Lord has clearly directed what we need to be doing as a church. Connecting people to Jesus. Now, I want that to sit with you for just a second. All right? I want you to think about what this really means. Connecting people to Jesus, that is our purpose. Connecting people to Jesus so that they can discover life in Him. I don't believe there is a greater purpose that a church can have than this. Now, there are a lot of churches that have a lot of different mission statements and vision statements, and you can go home tonight, you can hop on Google, and you can probably find 1,000 churches that might have something similar to this. I don't know that. I'm not interested. I didn't research other churches. I'm not interested in what other churches are doing. I'm interested to know what God is doing right here. And I think there is no greater blessing, there is no greater purpose for you and I as the people of God than to introduce people to Jesus Christ so that they can then discover the life that He promised to give them. I think that's the greatest thing that we could do. And I want our church to be known for that. I want our church to be famous for that. I want our church to be known for a place that when they walk through the front doors and they meet our greeters and they hear our songs and they experience our fellowship and they hear these sermons and they come to every ministry event and all of these programs, I want us to be known for one thing. I want people in this community to be connected to Jesus. I want them to know Jesus because it's in Jesus that they will discover the life that they're looking for. There's no greater purpose that we can attach ourselves to, that we can give ourselves to, than knowing Jesus and knowing the life that He gave. The reason that we think this way is because of these two things that Jesus said. I know you've heard some of these things before. John 6:35, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. I am convinced that is true. There's not a shred of doubt in my mind and in my heart of all that I know and believe about the truth of that verse. I believe with all of my heart that Jesus, in John chapter 10, verse 10, He gave His reason, His purpose, His mission statement was John 10:10. I have come. This is why I came into the world. This is why I was born. I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. And there are a lot of people that maybe even in this room, we have no idea what that means. We read that familiar passage and we hear those words, but what is this life? And what does it mean that Jesus said, I want to give this life to you, and not just give life to you, but have it abundantly? There are a lot of us, many people that are growing up in the church, they know this verse well. They have no idea what it means. And it could be that you've never experienced the life that Jesus offers you. Maybe Jesus is a religious figure. Maybe He's just something that you've heard about, and you've heard about Him through stories, and it's just something that you've grown up with. But I am convinced that the greatest need for every man, woman, boy, and girl that lives in this community is to know Jesus. There's nothing more important in their life than knowing Jesus. And I believe that all the things that they give themselves to, that they pursue in life, they are looking for life. They are looking for answers. They're looking for bread. They're looking for something that will satisfy their heart, satisfy their soul, and they're not going to find it until somebody tells them about Jesus. Because it's only in Jesus where we find that. And so I'm convinced this is the greatest purpose that we could ever have as a church, is that we exist, we are here, we join together, we give, we work, we serve, we do everything that we do in order to connect people to Jesus, because He is the only source of life that they're looking for. So, I want people to have a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. Just like I did. I want people to know Him as more than just a figure in a book, as some historical man that lived 2,000 years ago. You see, I don't know Him like that. I don't know Him from a distance. I know Him personally. I've met Him. I have conversations with Jesus. Jesus Christ changed my life. He radically changed my life. I met Him. There was a day when I was in a hole in the ground in the woods in Spartanburg County, and I was at the end of my life, and Jesus, this Jesus in this world, He crawled down in that hole with me. And I met Him. I did not see Him with my eyes. I did not hear Him with my ears. But I met the risen Christ. I had a personal encounter with Him, and He radically changed my life. And I have been loved. I've experienced love like I cannot imagine. I have been forgiven. I've experienced forgiveness like I have not imagined. I have experienced freedom. I know what Jesus means when He says that He's the bread of life. And if you will believe in Him and trust Him and give your life to Him, you'll never be hungry. You'll never be thirsty. I know some of you sound like you're preaching on Sunday morning. I'm sorry. I just want you to know, this is my DNA. This is how I'm wired up. This is what I'm passionate about. This is the one thing. I don't care if we do anything else. I want people to know Jesus. I want them to meet Him, not in a book or not in a song or not in a sermon or not because of somebody else. I want them to have a personal encounter with the risen Christ. That is possible. That's what God has called us to do. That's why Jesus came to earth, so that we can know Him personally. He's not just a story. And we can introduce people to this man who's real and authentic, and everything that the Bible says about Him is true. So I think that's the greatest purpose that we can ever have. So listen, I am not asking us over the course of these 3 weeks, I'm not asking us to do, listen, I would rather do one thing excellent than to try to do 50 things and kind of be mediocre at doing them. If I had a choice, I would rather be an expert in one thing. I would be the absolute best. I would be an expert in it. I would be able to lead in it. I would be able to teach others. I would rather do one thing, the absolute best that I can do, rather than 50 things that we're just kind of mediocre or average about. And I think this is one thing that we need to do to make things simple. I'm a simple guy. You know me pretty well. I'm not complicated. I'm a simple guy because the church is simple. The gospel is simple. The ministry is simple. There's nothing complicated about the ministry, just introducing people to Jesus. If you've met him, then you go and you tell others about him. I love these stories that we read about in the gospel. When you read through the gospels and you see John the Baptist, and John the Baptist stands up and people are coming to him and he says, hey, this isn't about me. I want you to meet the one that's coming after me. When you go and you see that Andrew was introduced to Jesus, and Jesus called him to follow him, you know what Andrew does? Andrew goes and finds his brother and says, hey, come with me. I want to introduce you to this guy that I just met. When Philip is introduced to Jesus and he finds out who he is, Philip goes and he finds a guy named Bartholomew. And he says, hey, I want you to come meet this guy that I just met. In John chapter 4, when Jesus is with the woman at the well and he tells her who he is, he explains to her who he is. What does she do at the end? She goes back into town, back to those people that didn't want anything to do with her. And what does she say? Come meet this man that I just met. Over and over in the Bible. This is what believers do. This is what the church does. They introduce people to Jesus. They bring them to Jesus so that they can understand who he is. So I want us to be really, really good at connecting people to Jesus so that they can discover life in him. And then just get good at doing that, to learn it, to hone it, to practice it, to improve it, to do it over and over and over and over and over until it's second nature to us, just like walking and breathing. That we become experts at connecting people to Jesus. Now, I'm going to use an example of what this looks like in the corporate world real quick, all right? And let me show you what this looks like and how this makes a difference. There are 2 companies in the world that generate more revenue than any other company. Do y'all know who they are? All right, I heard one. Okay. Walmart, and I also heard that. These two companies generate more revenue than any other company in the world. Now, I'm not talking about profit. I'm not talking about capitalization or those kinds of things. All right, those parts of I'm talking about simply revenue. Walmart generates $680 billion a year. Amazon generates $640 billion a year. These are the world leaders in generating revenue. How many of you know the purpose of Walmart? Do you know the mission statement of Walmart? Again, the world leader in revenue. What is their mission? You know what it is? It's so simple. Here it is. Helping people save money and live better. That's it. They're responsible for $680 billion of revenue with that simple purpose statement. And they do that, regardless of what you think about Walmart, they do that better than anybody else. They are good at it. It's a simple idea. And it spreads like roots across their entire world. But that simple idea has caused them to be largely successful. Anybody know what the purpose mission statement for Amazon is? This is a no-brainer. I pulled this right off their website. Helping customers find, discover, and buy anything. They are really good at that. How many of you, this should be all of us, you're looking for something, can't find it, go to Amazon, and you can find it. It may come from China or Mars or somewhere else, but you can find it. They are a world leader. Band-Aids for cars, okay? You buy anything. Helping people find, discover, and buy anything. That is a very simple idea that has caused them to be a world leader in the global economy. I want us, listen, this is not about corporate. There's not a lot of comparisons between the corporate world and ministry. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is trying to get us to understand what is the one thing that we do well. I want us to find one thing that we do well and do it better than anybody else. I don't care about the revenue. The revenue's not important. I don't care about those other things that come with that. I care about doing that one thing well. If we can do that one thing well, we will be wildly successful in ministry. And I believe that one thing that we do well is just simply connecting people to Jesus. Because it's in Jesus that they discover life. Everything that they're looking for. This is what the world needs more than anything else. This is what the world needs more than what they buy at Walmart or what they buy on Amazon. This is worth what we have in the person of Jesus. What I have in my heart, what I've experienced, is worth more than $680 billion a year. It's priceless to me. It's eternal. All of that fades. And so, this is the one thing that I think is most important for us. All right, is to do this: connect people to Jesus so that they can discover life in Him. All right, let me do a couple things here, and then we're gonna wind up, try to finish up very, very quickly. All right, I want to give you some numbers, okay? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this because numbers are kind of boring to people. They're not boring to me, especially when they represent real people that live right down the road and across the street. But I want to give you a little bit, so I want you to be able to see where we're talking about. I want you to see this picture right here. This is a 5-mile radius around our church. All right? And I know it's kind of hard to see. I tried to blow it up as best we can. The red dot is our church. Of course, this is Monticello, Hennett's Store Road, Winsboro Highway, Blythewood Road. I hope y'all can see that. All right? So 5 miles around the front door of our church. That's not very far. Down Monticello, down Winsboro Highway, and over across into Blythewood Road. So that's not very far. So maybe some numbers that we find in that circle. All right? In that circle, there are 6,667 people that live there. I'm so glad at least one more live there, and it's not 6,666. So whoever that one is awesome. All right? So within a 5-mile radius of our church, not 5 minutes, 5 miles, okay? 6,667 people live there. It is growing faster than the state growth rate, that circle. All right? Most of us live in that circle, some of us don't. But it's growing faster than the state growth rate. The growth rate is 8.44%. Again, these are numbers. I get that, but I just want you to track with me. All right? And at that growth rate, in the next 5 years, it's going to increase to 7,230 people that are going to live within a 5-mile radius of our church. The largest growth, there are 2 groups that are growing faster in our community more than any other group. It is young families, 25 to 34, and the retirement age, 65 plus. We've got all the data on this. This is just a sample, a small sample. Like I can give you all the people. You can go and look all this up for yourself if you want to. But the primary growth rate is happening in those 2 categories. This means that 53% of 6,667 people are not involved in a church. Okay, so that's what all the data is telling us. We get that from the Census Bureau, from all kinds of different research. That's pretty accurate. A little over half of the people that live within a 5-mile radius of our church are not involved in a church. Here's what that means. That means that 3,534 people within 5 miles of our front door are not involved in a church. Now, I think we need to know every single one of them. Either we have a desire to connect people to Jesus, either we just care about this room and the people in this room connecting people to Jesus, or we care about these 3,500 people that live around us that do not know Jesus. Now, I'm of the opinion, y'all are going to think over these 3 weeks, you might be looking for another church. I don't know. You might think I'm a little crazy. But I believe, I'm convinced that 100% of that number right there, 3,534, every single one of them needs to know Jesus. I don't know who they are. I just know that number, 100% of them, they need to know Jesus Christ. And we've got to go to them and introduce them to Jesus. They may say, I don't care. They may say, don't knock on my door again. They may say, that I belong to another. That's irrelevant to me. They need to know Jesus. So 100% of that number right there, they need to know Jesus. If we only reach 10% of them, if only 10% of this number gave their life to Christ and started coming to church, that would increase our membership 353 people. We don't have room for that. I'd love to see that. We'd meet in the parking lot. I don't care. We'll go to Joe and Diane's house. I don't care. We'll have house churches. I don't care. We'll do what we... But I'm just saying, all of them need to know Jesus. But what if we reach 10% of them? That's 353 people. So that's the numbers on a 5-mile radius. I got one more I'm going to show you, then we're going to be done. All right? Here is, again, that's the 5-mile radius. Here's a 10-mile radius. And granted, I understand that this includes some of Irmo. All right? And then southeast Columbia, all of that growth that's going on there. I understand all of that. But that is a 10-mile radius of our church. All right? Which, by the way, there are people that drive a lot further than 10 miles to go to church. These are people that are in our mission field. So here's a report of that. 156,631 people live in that area. All right? That's growing slower than the state growth rate. You know what that means? More people are moving closer to us than they are away from us. So that growth rate is about 3.5%, half of what the others. In 5 years, that area is going to increase to 162,098 people. And guess which 2 groups represent the largest growth of that? The same 2 groups. All right? Young families, 25 to 34, and retirement age, 65. Now, same percentage, basically, half. 51% of 156,631 people are not involved in a church. They do not go to church anywhere. And here's what that represents. 79,881 people within 10 miles of our front door are not involved in a church. And every single one of them needs to know Jesus. So who's going to tell them? Hey, again, I think 100% of them need Jesus. I think all 79,000 need to have a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. But what if we just reach 10%? What if over the next 5 years we reach 10% of the people who live in a 10-mile radius of our church? We would add 8,000 people to our church. Now, Joe and Diane, I don't know if we can put all them at your place. I know some of y'all think, well, that's just. No, those are real numbers. That's out there. When Jesus said that the fields are white unto harvest, this is what he means. So who's going to tell them? Who's going to go? I think God is calling us to go. I think He's wanting us to go. And He's looking for churches who will go. And we don't have to be experts in theology. We don't have to spend a ton of money. We just need to be available. Will we go across the street and down the road? Will we continue to do things in such a way that we can introduce people to Jesus? And again, they may say no. I don't care. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, I do care. But it doesn't matter how they react. What matters is, are we going to be obedient to introduce them to Jesus? That's what God is calling us to do. We do that. God does the rest. It's His responsibility to work in their heart. But it's our responsibility to connect them to Jesus and to say, can I tell you about Jesus? All right. So again, that is a 10-mile radius, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. This is the last thing. This is what I want you to go home with tonight. This is what I want you to write down if you need to, take a picture of if you need to, pray about if you need to, fast over if you need to, whatever you need to do. What in the world could we do? What would happen in our church if we could connect the people in our pews to Jesus? like a real, authentic encounter with Jesus, the real Jesus. What would happen? What if we could connect people in our community, or marriages, or families, or students, or children, or all of these things? What if we could connect people who are sick, people who are addicted, people who are homeless, people who are homebound, people who are shut-ins, people who are lonely? What if we could go and travel to Kentucky and we could connect people in Kentucky to Jesus? What if we could go to Kenya? What if we could go to Honduras? What if we could go to Spain and we could connect people to Jesus? Listen, the fields are white unto harvest. And I am convinced that this is the direction I believe that God is calling us to go. Now, there's a lot more information. There's a lot more things that we'll get to next week. There's some things that we'll talk about specifically. Tonight was just sort of an intro. I just want to share with you that thing that the Lord has laid on my heart, and what we've been praying for all of this time that we've been talking about and thinking and praying, doing all of these things. And again, I want you to come Sunday, okay? I want you to come Sunday because we're going to start talking more about our DNA. What is the DNA of our church? What makes us unique? And how do we find out what makes us unique? If we can get this figured out, if we can say yes, if we can say the purpose of my church, the reason that I go, the purpose for me joining this church, the reason that I serve in this ministry, and I give this and I do that, and I want people to know Jesus Christ. If we can coalesce around that one common goal, everything, every ministry, every line item on the budget that we just passed, every dollar, every dime, could it be given to this purpose? That we're going to use all of that to connect people to Jesus so that they can discover life in Him. I don't know how much time you spend with people in our community. People are hungry and thirsty and desperate for life. They are lost. They are dying. They are lonely. They are hurting. They are disillusioned. They're depressed. They've got all of these things that are going on in their life, and we have the answer. We have the answer. And so I want you to think about that, pray about that. I'm going to pray for us. We'll be done. And then thank our folks for the meal tonight and the food tonight. And make sure that you're back here on Sunday. And please be back next Wednesday. What are we eating next Wednesday? Oh, no, it's a secret. We love secrets around here, don't we? It's going to be good, and there'll be plenty of it, whatever it is. All right? So please. Food line, okay. Good. Yeah. All right, good. Well, again, thank y'all for your time. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you're safe going home. And please be back next Wednesday, and we'll continue in our conversation. All right? Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for every person that is here, Lord, for the things that you are doing. And God, we do believe that you're up to something wonderful, that you are up to something bigger and better, greater and grander than anything that we could ever imagine. And Lord, this is not about me. It's really not about us. It's about you. God, you are looking for a church. You are looking for a people who will go and complete the mission that Jesus started. And I don't think there's anything greater that we could do as a church than introduce people to Jesus. That everything we do, would we think about, every one of us tonight, would we think about that? Would we consider that? Would we spend some time in deep thought about everything that we do? Could accomplish one simple purpose: telling people about Jesus so they can discover life in Him. Lord, thank you for Cedar Creek Baptist Church. Thank you for the people who serve and give and love. Lord, how wonderful it is to belong here. And God, I just want to pray that you continue leading us and guiding us, showing us your way. And God, would we be courageous enough? Would we step out? Would we move forward? And Lord, I pray that you would unite us around that one common purpose. And let's go and see what you want to do at Cedar Creek Baptist Church. We love you and thank you for all of these things. Bless us, watch over us tonight as we travel home. And God, if you tarry, would you prepare our hearts to come back on Sunday and to worship you. We thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.